I'm sitting now with Professor Alan Dershowitz from Harvard University, the author of many books on Israel. Thank you so much for being with us,
My
Professor
pleasure.
Dershowitz.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I was just in a really fascinating panel here at the Herzeliya conference in which you talked about the sense of, well, first of all, on BDS, otherwise known boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And you said that within the BDS movement, there was almost an eroticization of hatred for Israel. Can you unpack that just a little bit?
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Sure. It's rational for some people to be critical of Israeli policies. You can have a rational discussion. But to demonize Israel the way it has been demonized, particularly in Europe, the hatred that's directed against Israel, the singular hatred, that there's no other country in the world that deserves that kind of contempt than Israel, that can't be explained by rational grounds. You can't explain the fact that a European poll says that Israel poses the greatest danger to peace in the world, more than North Korea, more than Iran, more than any other country in the world. That can't be explained rationally. That has to be explained by the same kind of deep-seated irrational hatred that brought about the events in Europe in the 1930s and 1940s.
Now, you were just saying also, when I heard you speak, that that the occupation and the settlements play a role in some of the opposition to Israel or in the BDS movement. So do you think that some of the activities in the BDS world are legitimate, saying, well, I don't agree with Israeli policies and therefore I'm not going to buy an Israeli product or something like that?
Absolutely not. If that were the motivating factor, people wouldn't buy Chinese products, Russian products, products of half the countries of the world, American products. You don't stop buying products or listening to concerts by artists or attending lectures by academics because you disagree with some of the policies of a country. Only Israel has BDS directed against it because of not only opposition to its policies, but a hatred toward the very concept of a nation state for the Jewish people.
Do you have the sense of this issue somehow getting more bitter, vociferous compared to, let's say, I don't know, 10 years ago?
No question. As we get further and further away from the Holocaust, people's hatred toward anything Jewish, people's jealousy toward the success of Jews and of the nation state of the Jewish people becomes more legitimate and easier to express. People couldn't express those views in the 50s and in the 60s. The 67 war turned that around a little bit because Israel was no longer seen as the vulnerable victim but as the powerful defender. And that gave a certain sense of legitimacy toward attacking the nation state of the Jewish people. And it only has become worse over the years. And I would say over the last 10 or 15 years, it's hit its nadir, the low point in hatred, irrational hatred toward Israel. Look, were I an Israeli, I'd be very critical of many Israeli policies. I'd be a center-left person. I've been opposed to the settlement policies of Israel since 1973. I've been in favor of the two-state solution since 1970. I admire the work of many of the human rights organizations within Israel, but as an outsider, I cannot accept the imposition of a double standard against only the nation state of the Jewish people, and that's what's happening.
As a final thought, you were speaking a little bit earlier at the conference here about the two-state solution, and particularly the question of whether or not you think the Palestinians have an interest in the two-state solution. And I think I heard you say you don't think that they do right now. Could you explain that?
Well, the Palestinians clearly are divided. Hamas does not have an interest. The Palestinian Authority leadership does have an interest, but they think they can get a better deal if they just wait out the effects of the BDS movement. So the BDS movement has actually had a very negative impact on the peace process. It has disincentivized the Palestinian leadership from accepting good offers and good deals the way the Palestinian leadership rejected 2000-2001 Camp David, the way they didn't accept Ehud Olmert's offer at the end of his resolution, and the way they seem to be reluctant to continue the peace negotiations now.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, thanks so much for being with us on TLV1.
Thank you.